The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Longman Simplified English Series. Read by Pairin Srisom. Chapter 3. Joys and Sorrows. Tom stood before Aunt Polly. The soft summer air, the restful quiet, the scents of the flowers, and the sleepy murmur of the bees had had their effect, and she was nodding in her armchair. His spectacles were up on to the gate. Head of safety, he knew that Tom had decided long ago, and she wanted to see him place himself in her power again in his bold way. "May I go out play now, Auntie?" he said. "What, already? How much have you done?" "It's all done, Auntie." "Tom, don't lie to me. I hate lies." "I'm not lying, Auntie. It's all done." Aunt Polly could hardly believe this, and went out to the sea for herself. She would have been content to find a quarter of Tom's statement true, when she found the entire fence wide ways, and not only wide ways, but carefully coated and located. She get paid with astonishment. "Well, I never. I must say you can work when you try, Tom, but it's seldom what you do try. Well, run along and pay." She was so astonished at Tom's performance that she took him to the cupboard and picked out the finished apple for him. He danced out into the garden and saw it. In a moment, the air was full of lumps of earth. They flew round his ears, and before Aunt Polly could come to, the brisker 6 or 7 had hit him, and Tom was over the fence and gone. There was a gate, but generally he was too short off to make use of it. He was suspicious, since he had punished Sis for calling attention to the back trail and getting him into the trouble. As he was passing the house where Jeff Thatcher lived, he saw a new girl in the garden. She was a lovely little blue-eyed angel with 2 long toys of yellow hair. At once a girl called Amy Levens vanished completely out of Tom's heart. He worshipped this new angel till he saw that she had discovered him. Then he prayed that he did not know she was present, and began to act in all sorts of silly boyish ways in order to win her admiration, while he was in the midst of some dangerous tricks. He drank aside and saw that the little girl was going towards the house. Tom came up to the fence and leaned on it, hoping that she would wait a little longer. Tom sighed as she put her foot on the bracelet, but his face lit up at once, for she threw a draught over the fence just before this pier. The boy ran round, picked up his treasure, and buttoned it inside his coat next to his card, or next to his smock, possibly, for he was not quite sure where the one began and the other ended. Although supper he was so gay that his aunt wondered why. She scolded him for throwing lumps of ate and sit. But he did not seem to mind in the rest. He tried to steal sugar under his aunt's very wet nose, and got a tap on its fingers with a spoon. "Aunt, you didn't hit sis when he takes sugar," he said. "Well, she doesn't worry me as you do. You would be always stealing sugar if I didn't watch you." Sis smiled in a satisfied way, and when the old lady went into the kitchen, he reached for the sugar pieces, but his fingers slipped, and the biscuit dropped and broke. Now it was Tom's turn to smile, but he controlled his tongue and kept silent. He said to himself that he would not say a word, even when his aunt came in, but would sit perfectly still till she asked who had broken the basins. Then he would tell, and it would be delightful to see that model boy get a good beating. He was so wild with joy that he could hardly keep still when the old lady came back and stood above the broken pies, looked angrily over her spectacles. He said to himself, "Now she is going to his seat," and the next instant he was flat on the floor. Her palm was up to spring again when Tom cried out, "Hi, why are you hitting me? She's broken it." Aunt Polly paused, and Tom looked at her for hurling pity. But when she had recovered from her surprise, he only said, Well, I'm sure Aunt despaired it. No doubt you were in some mischief while I was in the kitchen." Then her conscience piqued her, and she longed to say something kind and loving, but she judged that this would be taken as a concession, that she had been in the wrong, and disqualified for bad death. So she kept silent and went about her housework with a troubled heart. Tom sat gloomily in a corner and nursed his sorrows. He knew Joe's tearful eyes, that she gazed tenderly at him now and again, asking for forgiveness, but he refused to take any nothing. He imagined himself lying on the deathbed, and his aunt bending over him, begging for once a little forgiving word, but he would turn his face to the wall and die without saying the word. Oh, how would she feel then? And he imagined himself brought home from the river, dry with his cross all wet, and his poor hands still for ever, and his broken heart at rest. She would throw herself up him, and her tears would fall like rain. She would pray God to give her back her boy, and promise she would never, never ill-treat him any more, but he would lie there, cold and pale, and make onset, poor a little sufferer. He was so affected by these visions that he had to keep on the following. His eyes swam in tears, which overflowed and ran down from the edge from his nose. He was enjoying his sorrow so much that any cheerfulness was unwelcome. When his cousin Mary danced in, delighted to be home again after a work visit to the country, he got up the move in cold and darkness out, out one door as both song and sunshine in at other. His unhappy heart desired to be alone, and so wandered far away from the place where boys usually met. A long laugh on the river invited him. He sat down on its other edge and sat at the wide river, wishing that he could be drowned at once without suffering too usual pains. Not long after, as Tom was undressing for bed, since wake up, he said nothing. He never formed to expressions on Tom's face that it would be unwise to ask him any questions. Tom got into bed without saying his prayers, and Sis made a note of this bad behavior.